Hey everybody, another mini message for you today. We're still going to be in Genesis 22 verses 4 and 5. I want to take another phrase and let's take a few moments and break it down. And this is the last phrase in those two verses. And it's the phrase, we will worship and then we will come back to you. Now, we talked yesterday about the worship, right? We talked about the fact that this was the first time that word was used in this fashion, and this particular Hebrew phrase of bow down was seen in Scripture. But then he says, and then we will come back to you. Now that's fascinating because that is not going along with what Abraham has apparently been asked to do, right? We will not come back to you. Okay? And the way he phrases it, some people could even say, well, he was just trying to protect his servants. He didn't want them to know what was going on. He was protecting himself in this. But he didn't have to phrase it like that. He could have said, we'll go worship and I'll be back. That would have been fine. I don't think those servants would have thought anything about that phrase. But he literally said, we will come back. So I don't think this means that Abraham somehow knew this was only a test. I think Abraham legitimately thought he was going to follow through with this. But Abraham believed that God would bring the boy back, that he would resurrect him if Abraham followed through with the sacrifice. Because what he's doing is he's counting on the promise of God. He's saying, you told me Isaac is the son of promise, and he's the one that this great nation is going to come through. I've watched this happen for years. I've watched your promises. I've seen that I even have this child. I just had this child. I was 100 years old. I have this child. That you're not going to take this child, not permanently. So that's how he's viewing it. He's viewing it as he was going to be brought back, and he's going to have this child given back to him. So I think that part of Abraham's mind is giving him a little bit of comfort here in this, and that he does believe that whatever happens, he and the boy are going to come back. That's kind of fleshed out a little bit in Hebrews chapter 11, and we've talked about this in one of our sermons on Sunday morning recently in our Heavy Hitters sermon series. It says, by faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac. And he who had received the promises offered up his only son, of whom it was said, in Isaac your seed shall be called, concluding that God was able to raise him up even from the dead. So he believed that God could resurrect him, even though he had never seen God do this or never heard of God doing this, and there's no place in Scripture so far where God has done this. We're not to the place that Jesus has risen. We're not to the place that Elijah has resurrected the widow's son. Lazarus hadn't come hopping out of the tomb. But he still believes God is big enough and powerful enough to do this. And I think it also shadows and mimics Christ well in this too, just as I think so much of what's happening here is symbolism and a forerunner of what would happen with Jesus, between God the Son and God the Father. So here he too is thinking resurrection. And that's exactly what was on the Father's mind the day Christ died on the cross. Was this isn't going to be the end of the story. Abraham didn't think it was the end of the story. He trusted God in the most difficult situation you could ever imagine. And you can trust God in those too. See you guys again soon. Have a great day.